Hello.
Hey Ruby, how's it going?
It's going super well. I'm so happy to have you, Charles. I know you are a repeat Postman livestream offender, but
Yeah.
this is your first time as a guest on the student livestream. So we're super happy and honored to have you and have you speak to us about handling keys and secrets. I'm excited. Are you stoked?
I am so stoked. This is like one of those things that's like near and dear to my heart. And I love being on the Postman streams. I am the unofficial Postman hype man who doesn't
I
work
feel
at
like
Postman.
for sure we should have a t-shirt just for that, like post person, hype person, or hype man, hype woman, whatever the preference.
I would love it.
But yeah, for those folks who are just jumping onto our stream, let us know where you're joining us from. You'll see that message on the bottom here. Let us know where you're joining us from. And then for some background, for those folks who are just now joining our live stream, what we do on the student program live stream is promote API literacy and API education through a couple of different programs that you can find on our webpage. You'll see a QR code somewhere on your screen right now where you can visit that webpage. These programs that we have are free, and they each offer digital badges that you can display on your social profiles. So if you want it on your LinkedIn or even on your resume, you can display the certificates that you get from these programs and the badges that you get, which is pretty neat. But if you're a regular on our student program streams, you can expect a monthly episode on the last Tuesday of every month. So today is the last Tuesday of March, which, as I say, it sounds kind of unbelievable. But what we do is we often invite guests to the stream to present a tech talk or even have students from our very own Postman student community. So if that's something that you want to catch often, then don't forget to mark your calendars or join us on Discord, where we send a reminder for every single episode. That was a mouthful, but let me get that Discord link on the screen for you in case you're curious. Cool. So let's kind of shift gears here and introduce ourselves. If you don't know me yet, my name is Ruby, and I'm a senior developer advocate at Postman. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island, which is on the east coast of the US, and I've been at Postman for over a year and a half now, so coming up on 2 years in the fall. And with us today, we have Charles. Charles, do you want to do a quick intro of yourself? I know you have a separate introduction during your
Yeah.
presentation later.
Yeah, I'll just do the whole intro now. So I'm Charles. I'm based in Seattle and I work at Grammarly as a developer support engineer. I support Grammarly for Developers, which is a developer experience that allows you to add writing assistance to your application, which is what Grammarly does. It is a suite of technologies, browser extensions, desktop applications, and now developer software, a developer tool set that allows you to add writing assistance. Super excited to be chatting about keeping your secrets safe. It's a really timely chat.
Yeah, definitely. And I was excited to learn that you're working at Grammarly. I mentioned this maybe to you before, but I use Grammarly for everything. It is basically like my older brother, just like over my shoulder telling me like, you spelled that wrong, or nobody's going to understand this. You could say it this way. So yeah, love Grammarly. Um,
It's pretty cool. It's free. Everybody should try it out. Just like go to grammarly.com, download the extension, see how you can write just a bit better. It's a pretty cool tool. I love it.
For sure. But with that, let's actually shift into a segment that we've been doing on our most recent student program streams. And that's just taking a look at our student expert certification. We talk about it a lot. We keep telling you all that you can get free certification, earn a badge, get API training, but what does that actually look like? Let me show you really quickly by sharing my screen here. If you use the QR code that you see up on your screen, which is in the top left corner, hopefully, this is what you'll see. It's a sign-up page for our student expert training, and all you have to do is obviously enter these fields, and once you hit submit, you'll get a unique link to our academy. All of this is free, by the way. There's no commitments there, so let me actually see if I can pull up the academy. I had to switch to my personal laptop at the very last minute, so we'll see if I'm still signed in, but if I'm not, that's fine. Let's see. Cool. So you'll get a unique link to the Academy. Of course, you'll sign in. One of the Academy courses is down here for students. and you'll see oh, I'm getting a little bit of an echo.
Let's take a look here.
Awesome. So on this page, after you've gotten your unique link to our academy, this is what you'll see. You'll open up your course and you'll see an overview, and this is all of what you can benefit from. It's an API fundamentals course, essentially, and what you'll do is you'll practice in Postman interacting with an API. You'll get to show off everything that you know, and at the very end, you'll see it down here, you'll get to claim a badge, and you'll get Student Expert Certified, which is pretty neat. Let me actually unmute you, Charles. I muted you for a very quick second.
No worries.
Cool. So that is what the expert training looks like, or at least the sign-up part of it. When you sign up for that, you are always welcome to join Discord and ask any questions that you have during your training. The Postmanauts like myself and my other team members are on Discord all the time, ready to answer your questions. We also have a really strong student expert and student leader community, and they're on there as well, helping each other out. So you're not alone in this training ever. You can take it and you can do it with your friends, and you can get some help in Discord. Then one last thing I wanted to mention, let me actually show that Discord link as I keep talking about it. You might be curious about what it looks like. Oh, it's still on the screen. I just took it away. Great. One last thing I wanted to mention is that you can always stay up to date on the latest and greatest from our community over on LinkedIn. And you'll see recordings of these streams on that LinkedIn page, plus recent blog posts. So if that's something else you care about, you can find us on LinkedIn here. Awesome. So let's shift gears again. What are we discussing? Handling keys and secrets. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Yes. So handling keys and secrets. So how did this like really come about? I was
Wait.
like
Charles, can I pause you for a quick second? I'm hoping to cue you up a little bit because I did have some background on how we got to this topic, right? Because I'm sure folks are curious.
Yeah.
But yeah, for today's episode, I thought it'd be really cool to discuss what to keep in mind as a junior developer when you're dealing with sensitive data like keys and secrets. And the idea for today's episode actually was inspired by a tweet from Charles, which if you don't follow him on Twitter, you definitely should. He's often sharing really cool knowledge and learnings about tech for other folks to check out. But anyway, he had a post that I will share up on my screen here. Sorry to put you on blast here, Charles.
No, it's okay.
Keeping you accountable to your posts. But yeah, here is Charles's tweet up here. So he says, y'all have to start hiding your keys, your secret keys in .env files or environmental variables, even for random projects on Glitch and Replit. So Charles, I know you have some really helpful information to share about this topic. I'll be chiming in to ask questions, and we'll find some pockets to share how Postman addresses the topic too, but start taking the wheel. Go for it.
Okay, I'll take the wheel. So yeah, essentially, when I wrote that tweet, I was just doing some dev work, working on examples. I was playing around with Code Sandbox, and I was searching Code Sandbox for examples because people often put up examples on Code Sandbox. And if you've never been to Code Sandbox, it's like one of those environments that you can use to like kind of build like a really quick website. Like there are lots of them. They're like Replit, there's Code Sandbox, there's Glitch, but they're really quick environments to test code. And I came across one where someone was playing around with like Chat GPT, OpenAI GPT API, and they hard coded their key. And I was like, this is not a good idea. Like everybody wants those keys. They're like Pokemon cards back in like third grade. Like people will jack you for these keys. So I just like kind of sent out that tweet. And that using environment variables and like these really core practices around security is pretty important because we're all dealing with APIs. We'll be probably dealing with APIs more and more, not just as developers, but just as people. Now that we have like these large language models like ChatGPT that can help you interact with APIs through plugins and stuff like that. So it's never been more important to be mindful about how you use your keys and how you think about keeping them safe.
So, as you share that, Charles, I did want to ask the audience, and I'll throw the question in the chat too. What could go horribly wrong if you share your API key? What could go horribly wrong if you share your API key? I'll throw that in the chat for folks to think on, but I'll let you keep going, Charles.
Yeah, so it's like API keys, it's secrets, and it's not just like it's not student developers or junior developers, it's senior developers, it's large companies. So let's see here. I have this academic paper, this academic paper that I saw not too long ago that I just like it because of what it, its title, How Bad Can It Get? Characterizing secret leakage in public GitHub repositories. And I won't read you this entire page, but essentially they scanned 13% of all the GitHub projects, right? And they were able to find API keys and other types of secrets in a fairly large amount of them. And keep in mind, like terrible things can happen when you leak your secrets. And, it's not just individual devs or like smaller projects. Just last week, um, GitHub posted in their blog post in their under the security tag that they updated their RSA SSH host key. Now, if you use Git to collaborate and do version control, right? If you use GitHub, you have like one of two ways to really like interact with it. You can use like HTTPS or you can use SSH, right? To like clone projects and push projects and just do the whole version control for collaborative coding thing. So GitHub actually had to update their SSH host key, which is the key that you use to be able to identify GitHub, make sure it's the right GitHub when you're pushing code and communicating with GitHub, because it turns out that someone in GitHub actually committed their SSH private key, which means that if someone were able to somehow snoop on your conversations on some of your connections with GitHub, they could decrypt your communication. They could see what you're sending to GitHub, and so as a result, they had to roll their SSH host key because it's part of a public private key pair. So you lose your private key, you have to go and roll your public key too. So
this was a big, big deal, right? Because all of a sudden folks had to change the fingerprint and everything, if that's what they were using. So this was recent, right? You said this was last week?
yeah, this is last week. This was March 24th. So don't know when it happened. I don't think that was shared just when they changed it. But essentially it's a thing. And it happens to everybody. It happens to GitHub. So it's there's a good chance that, nothing happened, like no one took advantage of it. But at the very least, it inconvenienced a lot of people who were, who don't want to have to think about like updating how they connect with GitHub, right? Millions of people had to change an action because someone committed a secret to GitHub publicly. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to emphasize that like this is not unique to GitHub.
No,
Security issues like this happen all the time, everywhere. And that's why it's so important to know how to properly handle sensitive stuff like this. I think recently, also, just speaking of GitHub, there was that issue with Twitter. This might not necessarily have to do with like developers handling keys and secrets, but well, I guess it is a secret generally. But Twitter's source code was also revealed. And then, on top of that as well, there wasn't any information about how long that was public, but that was swiftly taken down. So there's something else there about just minding your P's and Q's online and the things that you're sharing, and making sure that you're always honoring the data that you're working with.
Definitely. It's super important. It's incredibly important. And just like in general, like it's not so much about the individual like actions. Like again, everybody makes mistakes. Stuff happens. It's just like having a posture where you think, you're very intentional about how you think about security, right? And it's kind of everyone's job. Not everyone's going to be an expert. There are generally people who specialize in this type of stuff. They might work in DevOps. I think there's even like a subset of DevOps called SecOps, where
Mm-hmm.
folks are thinking like very deeply about secrets management. But just like in general, it's something. It's just something to think about. So that's pretty much the context there. I guess where we can go from here is like we can just start kind of building stuff. I had slides, but like I think it's just better to just start doing stuff. I guess
Yeah.
one question I would have for the audience is yeah, I guess one question I would have for the audience is like, which APIs do y'all use, and do those APIs involve secret keys? Because not all APIs do. Some APIs are free, and they're like test APIs, like the Pokey API. You don't necessarily need a key for that. But I'm curious about which APIs people are using and how they're using secrets. I will say on my team, we use secrets all the time. So in a bit, I'm going to hop into Postman and I'm going to show you some API calls to like and show you how you might use secrets there. But I just want to show that like secrets are kind of everywhere, and you have to be mindful about them and how you use them. So on my team, we have a Grammarly for Developers GitHub. This is where you can see some of the examples of how you use how you can add Grammarly to a website. I won't get into that, but one thing that I do want to show folks is how we use secrets. So as part of my job as a developer support engineer, it's really important for us to be able to know when someone files an issue externally on our GitHub, and then be able to track them internally. So externally, we're tracking stuff on GitHub. Internally, we use Jira, and GitHub has this really cool system called GitHub Actions, where you can essentially create workflows that allow you to automate some processes. So one common process is like that happens in my day to day is like someone files an issue on GitHub, and then I have to file an issue on Jira if it's like a bug, so that the engineering team can work on it. Luckily, Jira has like some APIs to make that possible, and which means that you can create a GitHub action for it, right? So if you look at this GitHub action that we have here, you can see that my colleague Andrew wrote a GitHub action to create a Jira ticket based off of a GitHub issue. And you'll see here that we have these secrets because it's a really important part of the integration. And crucially, you can see all of the code, you can see all the things that we're doing, you can see our entire GitHub action, but the most important part of what we're doing, the most important part, our secrets, are nowhere to be found. You can just see that it's a secret. And then we have this Jira base URL, right? And these are the keys that we need to be able to automate, right? So the code part is external, but the secrets are hidden in these special variables here. And this is what we're going to be talking about. And this is what we're going to see for the rest of our stream, environment variables. Or env variables or env variables. What do people use? Is it env?
Yeah, so I feel like there's a debate underlying that one. So like we have, and I know you're going to go into this in a little bit, but there's the .env package, right, that people can install, but it's like called .env, and then there are files with like the extension of literally .env. And I know, Charles, you've been calling it .env,
Yeah.
but like my brain mentally like can't process that. um,
Okay.
but I feel
Poll
like
for
it's we'll conduct a poll. What do you call it? Do you
exactly.
pronounce it or do you actually read it? like it's spelled phonetically.
I have so many questions. Like, do you call it is it .env or .env? Is it GIF or
Mm,
GIF? And is it SQL or SQL? I
ah,
want all the opinions. Um, okay, so let's hop on over to Postman. Let's like see how this might work. So I'm gonna go back to so before I worked at Grammarly, I worked at a company called Stripe. They have really nice APIs. Um, and so let's actually go about um, let's go about using APIs here. So I have Postman open. Um, the goal here is just to use Stripe, which is a payments company, to create a checkout session. If you want to know more about how to do this, actually, the first stream I ever did um, with Postman was on this specifically. So you can check out that stream. Um, I think it was called Scaffolding a Payments Integration with Postman, is what it was called.
yeah, I'll
But
piggyback on that one. If you haven't seen Charles's previous streams, I heard in one of them that he is singing.
oh my
So
goodness,
definitely worth digging through his previous streams.
do not go for the singing. You will be disappointed. So here's the story with this Postman call that we have here to Stripe. So Stripe, the goal here is just to create a one-time payment page called a Stripe checkout page. It's super useful. You see it all the time. Um, I won't go into the fine details of the API because again, I have other streams for that. But the long and short of it is you need a URL to tell the person where to redirect the person to after they've completed the payment, a URL to if they cancel, a payment mode. You have to pass in this ID of the product that has all of the product data, and then you also need a quantity. And if you create this API call, Stripe will give you a big blob of information and also a URL that you can send people to. But Stripe is one of those APIs that require that you have a secret key, right? So in addition to passing all this information, you have to do some auth. So if I go to my collection, I have if I go to my collection, I have authorization at the collection level. And there are multiple types of authorization, right? I'm going to go with bearer token because that's what Stripe uses, right? And I need to pass in my token. So if I go to the Stripe dashboard, now we just go to Stripe dashboard. I can click on, and this is a Stripe dashboard. Stripe is free to test out. So you can go, sign up for that. Go to Stripe dashboard.stripe.com. And if you don't have an account, sign up for one. It's fun. Try it out. But if you go to developers and then you go to API keys, you have two keys. One's a publishable key. This is like one of those keys that it's okay to share. And then the secret key is the one that you want to be able to protect. Now, in order to get the API to work, and I'll just show you what happens if you don't send your key so that we know what that looks like. I'm just going to go ahead and send this request. I'm going to get a 401 not unauthorized, and it's just going to tell me that I did not provide an API key. You need to provide an API key, and you need to use bearer auth. That's why I used the authorization pattern of bearer token. So I'll just pass in my token, and Postman is always on top of it, just telling us heads up, this holds sensitive data. To keep this secure, we recommend using variables. So there you go. I didn't even need to give this talk. If you're using Postman, Postman tells you what to do.
Yeah, I do want to point out that you mentioned that you had to go to Stripe's developer portal to get these credentials, right? That's
Yes,
something that we emphasize during our API 101 workshops in the student programs is, if you're using Twilio, Stripe, Spotify, these publicly accessible APIs, to get those credentials, you usually have to sign up through their developer portal separately and get approved and all of that, and you'll get those credentials to use. So I just wanted to mention that for those folks who are just getting started with public APIs.
exactly. And that's important because this key authorizes you to use the API, and a part of authorization is like kind of knowing whether or not the request that's being made comes from which account. So this says you're authorized to do it. Now, critically, API keys don't really tell you who you are. Like, it doesn't say that this key doesn't say this is Charles, right? It just says that this is from an application that Charles happens to own. So, authorization and then like identity, a little bit different. But yeah, when you use these APIs, these public APIs that oftentimes have some cost component or a rate limiting component, which means you can't use it super quickly, you're going to need a key. So I'm just going to paste my key in here and then, send my request, and it works. I'm going to skip all the way down. This is the URL. You click this, and if you were to use a real Stripe integration, it would take you to this payment page. So that's how it works. But let's see here. We have a problem, and the problem is if I made this key, if I made this Postman collection public, anyone, absolutely anyone, could just see my key. So the answer is to use exactly what Postman has here, environment variables. So instead, what I would do is just make a variable called, what's the best way to do this? Ruby? Is it like,
Yep, you got it right there.
am I doing this right?
Yeah.
Okay, look at this. Okay. Okay, so we got scopes. So there are different scopes that you can do in Postman. I'm just going to go with the global scope. Actually, I'll go with the collection scope. I'll scope it to this collection because this is the collection that is for the Stripe API. So I'll go ahead and click set my variable. And now if I make my request and I send, it still works. But if you go to the auth, presumably it will not show my actual secret key, but just the secret key variable, and other people will have to populate it, right?
Yeah, so if your collection is not shared with your team or with others publicly, then they wouldn't be able to see it. They would just see your curly brackets there. And then there's also the initial and current value difference that a lot of people get confused sometimes. So actually, let me see if I can share my screen because it might be a quicker show here.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Awesome. So up on my screen, I have a couple of public workspaces, right, which are accessible to everyone who can search this in the search bar. So this is a workspace that I worked on last weekend for a workshop. And what I did was use Spotify and Twilio credentials to be able to do some demonstrations. And those credentials are saved in environments. So I have over on the left here an environments tab, and I have Twilio creds. That's where my credentials are that I got from the Twilio developer portal. And something I like to emphasize, especially to newer folks who are using Postman, this initial value, and I think, Charles, this was interesting to you yesterday as well as we were discussing. The initial value is actually synced to the cloud. So if this is a shared workspace, which it is, it's a public workspace, then anyone who comes in here can unmask with this eyeball symbol and see that initial value. So if you're using a public workspace, you do not want to store sensitive stuff in that initial value. You should be putting it in the current value. So while you're logged in, you can use it and it'll persist. But once you log out, current value is gone. Initial value is what persists. So be extra careful as you're using Postman specifically with those two.
Today I learned. I've always used current value because it felt safe, but it's good to know that that's the way to do it. Let's see. Okay, I got 20 minutes. I think I can hop into some like code. Is that cool?
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen one more time, and hopefully it won't bug out on me. Okay, cool. So it looks like I'm sharing. So
yes, you are.
Okay, cool. So let's just like run through some code, and I just kind of want to show you how .env variables work in general. So I'm just gonna open up my terminal here, and woo, that is Maybe that's a little too big. Is that too big?
I mean, it looks just perfect. It was a little bit blurry for a moment, but it's unblurred now. Perfect.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I like to have really big fonts. Like my wife will look at my phone and she'll be like, what is going on? Uh, why are your fonts so large? So I'm just going to go ahead and type code dots. So that's a little trick that you can use to open VS Code.
You have to install that though, I learned. So from within VS Code, you have to install that.
Yes, I'm just going to, for anyone who's interested, Command Shift P, and then install code, command, and path. Change your life. Okay. Cool. So what I have here is a project, and this project is essentially what you just saw in Postman, except I'm going to be using the Stripe SDK, and I'm going to use Express, which is a backend web framework to build web applications. Okay. Just to walk you through this code very, very quickly. Let's take a look here. I have my framework called Express, and then I have this dependency called .env. .env. I can't say .env. It's really hard to say .env.
Got to go with GIF.
Right? Yes. GIF makes sense. GIF is a peanut butter.
Exactly. Same page there.
Right? So here I have required.env. I'm just gonna go into, let's see here, make that a little bit bigger. Required.env config, and I'm just gonna say, okay, I want this .env package, which is gonna allow me to put all of my secrets in a special file called .env, and I have to tell the package where the .env file is. And I'm gonna show you what the .env file looks like now. So, let me walk through the code a little bit more. In addition to having .env, I have Stripe. Now, before you saw me using Stripe with the Postman collection, I passed in a secret key. Here, I'm doing the same thing. I just have to pass in my secret key. Here, I have a function to create a Stripe checkout link. So again, when I clicked the button on Postman, what it did was create a checkout link. This is all the same stuff that you just saw in Postman. It's just using the Stripe SDK, right? Makes it a little bit easier to write the code. And this is a Node project. And then finally, I have a single route. So when I run this server, it's going to create, and I go to the home page on localhost 3000, which is the port I'm using. It's going to have this HTML. Generally, you would have an actual HTML file, but for our short little example here, I'm just going to send HTML into the response. So this is something you can do. You generally wouldn't do this in production. But what I am going to send is just a header of example, my secret, which is going to be a environmental variable. I'm also going to send my checkout link. Now, one thing I want to just kind of call out is this part right here called process.env and then my secret. So when you're developing in Node, you can set your environment variables for your program in a special kind of holder, special kind of object, I guess, called process.env, right? And this allows you to do what we saw in Postman. Essentially, it allows you to pass a variable instead of a value, which means that if you were to commit this code, you wouldn't have to put your secret right here. You could, and that would work, but it would expose you to all types of problems, right?
Yeah, some of those doomsday scenarios, right? Because I don't know if we addressed that just yet. Like, what's the worst possible thing that could happen if your keys are exposed?
Oh, goodness.
So some of those scenarios are like account takeovers. So somebody could take Charles's Stripe account and just do a whole bunch of stuff, and it would be on Charles. Or like if you're using a health care app or something, health records would be exposed, which is illegal and also unsafe, and exposes a lot of people to harm. So not a good thing to expose these keys.
It's really, really bad. And that is why you want to put them in that .env file. So here I have a .env file. And so I can define all the variables that I care about. So I can I had one variable called, I guess, my secret. So I'll say my secret equals I say dot env. I don't know. And then I can put my Stripe secret key as well here. So let me make sure that I'm looking at the right one. So they have to have the same name. So I'm just going to put my secret key, and then I'll go to, I can go to the Stripe dashboard, grab my secret key. It's not very secret if like I'm showing it to you all the time, but
I do want to mention though that yes, you are showing it here on the stream, but there is the option, I'm pretty sure, in the developer portal to regenerate it. So Charles can always go back and just change it up so it doesn't put him at risk.
100%. I'm going to roll this key immediately. The cool thing about Stripe that I really appreciate is that like they have test keys and like actual production keys. So even if you take my test key, it's just like, cool, do test things. You can't take my money. Cool. So I have my keys set up. I have my project set up. I'm just going to go ahead and run it. So if I do, let's see here, npm start. Is that what the kids are using? All right, let's see here. There's a good chance that I am not in the right spot. Yep, that's what it is. So what happened there was I ran npm in a project where, you know, I didn't have like package JSON or anything, so it yelled at me. So I'm going to try this again. npm run start. Right, it says it's listening on port 3000. I'm going to hop in over here into Firefox. We're going to go to localhost 3000, which is kind of place you go. This is just the port that I happen to have my project running on. But as you can see, I have example, I have my secret, I say.env, and I have checkout. So if I click checkout, this should work just like with Postman. This will actually redirect me when I click this button, but it should take me to a checkout form like we saw before. And there you go.
Nice.
So that's .env in a nutshell, but there is a problem here. And I will ask the audience, if you look at my code, do you see a problem? Perhaps. I'll give them a second. I'm going to just tell you the answer, right? So I kind of just took a problem and put it in a different spot, right? So my Stripe secret key is no longer in my actual code, right? And that's awesome. But it is in my .env file. So if I were to commit this to GitHub, you can see that this would be tracked. This would be added. And then instead of my keys being spread out in my code, all of my code would be conveniently in one file, right?
You had a
yeah.
good answer in the chat there. Git is tracking. They're
Ooh,
always
good
watching.
job. Good job. Yes. Yes, it is tracking. Git is watching. You need to be careful with Git. Okay. So instead, what we can do is use a certain type of file called git ignore. And this just does, you know, it does what's on the 10. It says, it tells Git what to ignore. Let me make sure this is, I think it needs to be, where's my project? I think my project's actually at this top level here. So what we can do is just type in .env, save it, and now .env is not being tracked anymore. So I can ignore .env. That's a pretty good one to ignore. Another one you might want to ignore is like node modules, which are all of the dependencies that you've loaded. You know, I mean, you could, but you probably shouldn't. Don't commit node modules either. So this kind of solves that problem. So now you, when you're doing local development, you can add your .env file, and you can put your secrets there. You can track everything, version control with Git. You can upload it on GitHub, and you don't have to worry about it being committed to source, which is great.
So to run all of that back again super quickly, we have a .env .env or now I'm pronouncing it totally differently, .env package installed in our project. And what that does is help us load this .env file where all of our variables, our secrets and keys are stored.
Yes.
But that wouldn't have been enough not to track these variables. We needed that .getignore for Git to essentially ignore our .env file because we specified that in .getignore. So
That is right.
it's a little layered, but it's a little safe. So
It's a little layered, but it's a little safe. That is exactly right. Now, if you're doing local development, this is enough. This is great. In general, you want to use .env. When it's time to actually deploy an application, oftentimes, if you happen to use a service like Render or Netlify or Vercel or like any of these or Cloudflare or like any of these services that allow you to take some code, give it to a service, and then they just deploy the app for you. They generally have a place where you can define your environment variables there. So actually, I can probably show you what that looks like. I don't know if I'm logged into Render, but we're just riffing at this point. So let's do that. I'm gonna just go ahead and sign in. It should be chill. Let's see here. All right, cool. So I have like a bunch of projects up here. Some of them have succeeded. Some of them have failed. Let's see here. I have one called, goodness, let's see here. What's most important is that you can see that they have environment variables. So for example, here, this is Render. This is my preferred service. It's like Heroku, but still free. And it allows you to give this service access to GitHub, and then you can tell it to deploy a particular project. And you can configure your environment variables, right? And it says here that anything that you set will be able to be accessed through process.env in Node, which is what we were using in our code just a moment ago. So
awesome. So this is a great complement to that.
Yes. So this is pretty good. This is. I mean, if your project is pretty straightforward, this is enough. .env file in your project, right? And then you just kind of when it's so .env file here, right? You set your secrets here, and then when you're ready to deploy, you go to your service of choice, and then you just set your environment variables. You make sure that what needs to be the same is the same. You define them there, you deploy your project, and you're done. And you don't have to worry about it.
I have a quick question for you, Charles.
Yes.
Does GitHub have its own kind of secret scanner that you know of?
Oh, yes. Yes. You know what? I'm so glad you brought it up. I'm so glad you brought it up. It does. So in addition to, I won't use this project. Let me go to this project. In addition to, screen's a little bit too big for me right now. In addition to GitHub having like environment variables for things like actions, if something goes horribly wrong and you happen to deploy your keys anyway, GitHub does have code scanning, and code scanning allows GitHub to detect common vulnerabilities and coding errors. So it will look for patterns of keys that it has seen and is aware of, and be like, "Hey, you just committed a Stripe secret key, right?" So GitHub has this, GitLab has this. A lot of the version control applications, web applications out here have it. So as a fallback, turn this on just in case things go wrong. So absolutely use code scanning for your projects.
You know who else has a version of this secret scanning?
Oh no.
Oh
Are you
yes.
serious?
So Postman actually does as well. So I'll share my screen here.
Yes.
And there we go.
Okay.
So on my landing page, I'm in a team, of course, and my team settings are up here in the corner. If you navigate to your team settings and you go over to Secret Scanner here, then you have by default on any plan in Postman, the option to get notified of any keys or secrets being revealed. So similarly, if any of these keys are revealed, you'll get notified by email in-app over here. And if you're using the Slack integration, you can get a Slack notification about that as well. So super handy. And then, of course, if you want to customize these or add your own kind of scanning, you can upgrade your plan and get that done as well.
Amazing. I need to start using this. I was not aware.
Yeah, for sure. It's very handy and super relevant to today's chat. But Charles, I wanted to ask you, did you have anything else that you wanted to share before we move into our next segment?
Oh goodness, I have precious. I think I have precious little time. I wanted to do a quick plug for a service I just discovered.
Yeah,
Can I show
yeah,
it anyway? Really,
yeah. Go for
really
it.
quickly. I can't do a proper demo. I wish I could because it's just so cool. So I want to show something to y'all called Doppler. Okay, so at some point you might get a bigger project and you might have keys everywhere. You might have multiple services. You might want a single source of truth for your keys, and oftentimes people will tell you that after a certain level of complexity, you want to use something called a secrets manager. All of the big clouds have one. Heroku, sorry, not Heroku, HashiCorp, AWS Secrets Manager, Azure has a solution, Google Cloud Platform has a solution. They all have solutions for you to be able to manage your secrets in a very, very in a very safe way. But oftentimes, those solutions are built with someone with like a DevOps person in mind. Doppler is kind of like the new kid on the street. It's like for the rest of the developers. So it is a secrets manager that essentially allows you to manage your secrets in one spot. So I'm going to just show you what that looks like. So this is my Doppler project. It allows you to add over your secrets into a single spot, and then actually use and actually kind of like either integrate your secrets with your favorite service like Render, or inject your secrets into your app as you run it. So I'm going to do just the fastest demo possible. So let's see here. So here's my Doppler project. I've actually already set it up. It's super simple to set up. I would say go to doppler.com, sign up. It's free. See the installation guide. It's like 3 or 4 steps in a terminal. But I'll just hop back into VS Code. I'm going to copy my secrets. I'll go back to Doppler, click Import Secrets, click Import Secrets. So now my secrets are here. I'll click Save. I'm just going to save it for development because that's all I'm doing. Let's see here. Now, if I go back to my project, I can, let's see here. I'm going to try and do this. See if I can do this really quickly. If I go back to my project, so it's currently turned off. What I am going to do is just run, I believe it's, let's see, what was it? Doppler run npm start. So I'm going to run Doppler run npm start. And because I've configured Doppler to run with the one project that I have, it should inject my secrets. I did not practice this beforehand, so it could go wrong, but we're going to see. All right, so note that I did comment out my secrets. So if I go back to my app and my secrets aren't there, I should not see isay.env, and the button should fail when I click it. So I'm just going to go ahead and click go back here to Firefox, go to localhost. I'm going to refresh. Okay, it says isay.env, and I click checkout. Now you might be thinking, oh, well, you had a .env file. That's what's going on here. Okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove to you conclusively that is not what's happening. I'm going to go ahead and delete my .env file, move it to the trash. I want to stop my server. I'm going to rerun my command, Doppler run. Now, again, this is injecting my environment variables that I set in the Doppler dashboard, and then running my code. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. Okay, run it again, no .m file. And if I go back to Firefox, I'll just go to localhost 3000. I, I say .m, my secret's still there. I click checkout, and it works. So this is another alternative to .m files, allows you to have a single source of truth. Is overall just a really awesome service. Check it out. I could not do it complete justice, but it is definitely an alternative, and maybe the next step once you get past .m files and they don't scale for you enough, right? So
Yeah, that's an excellent option for scaling and for production environments, right? As folks are like pulling different projects locally, like you're gonna need to know everything that's in that .env file if you want to reproduce. But with Doppler, you don't have to do that. You don't have to worry about that.
yes, and it's pretty cool. It has like you can set it up for some keys for dev, some keys for staging, some keys for production. It's like really nice, something to consider.
Sweet. So I know we are jumping over time a little bit, but we also started a little bit late due to technical issues, but that's fine. We will start shifting gears a little bit into shout outs. But before we share our shout outs, I do want to share a quick call out for Google Summer of Code. I'll share a blog article with more details on how Postman is supporting GSOC, Google Summer of Code, and what kind of projects you can work on to participate. The deadline for sharing proposals for Google Summer of Code is April 4th, so that's just around the corner, actually. And we have a channel in Discord dedicated to supporting folks who are interested in Google Summer of Code. So here is that blog article that you can check out and take a look at what that's all about and how Postman is involved in that, and how you can get involved in it as well if you're interested, which should be really enticing for students. And then the Discord link, where you can find a channel and our community all talking about this and other API-related topics, is here. But with that, we can start shifting into shout-outs. So I'll give Charles a minute or two to think about his shout-out while I share mine. So recently, Himanshu, a student expert on our Discord server, used the Share Your Work channel to show off a Twitter thread that they started. It helps folks understand Gitignore and its benefits. So I thought that was such a relatable thread for today's episode that I just had to mention it. If you want to check that out, that's in Discord as well. But I did want to say that we love seeing the projects our community members work on, and especially how they apply their API knowledge. If you're curious about what folks are doing, you're always welcome to join Discord and find out more about that. That link again is on your screen. But Charles, did you have any shout outs you wanted to share?
Oh goodness. You know what? As a developer support engineer who's staffed to GitHub issues, I want to shout out someone in our community who submits the greatest issues ever. On GitHub, his name is Etienne Lim. I'm sure I'm not saying that name correctly, but shout out to you, mystery contributor, because you make the jobs of our developer teams, as well as my job, way easier by just writing really, really awesome issues. And I would encourage, any developer of any level of experience to really, copy that behavior, imitate that behavior, and make it easy for other people to reproduce your issues. It's a great skill. So shout out to you. And also shout out to the Grammarly developers community in general. Come join the community, Grammarly-for developers at on GitHub. It's popping. Check it out.
It's popping. I love it. But parroting what you just shared about contributing to issues, we have the Postman Labs GitHub account as well, where you can find our repositories, and we are also always open to issues and things that folks point out or that they want to see as a feature being contributed there as well. So if you're curious and are interested in doing that and getting involved in that way too, you can do that as well. All right, so with every one of our stream episodes, we like to conclude with a Kahoot game. So if you've never used Kahoot, what it is a quiz game that you can play for free with all of us right now live by logging into kahoot.it on your phone's browser or on your desktop browser in a new tab. Once you are on kahoot.it, you can enter the code that you will see on your screen in just a moment. So I'm going to share Oop. See, I realized I changed laptops and I had Kahoot open on the other one as well, but let's see if we can log in.
So I can play too?
Yes, you can.
I'm encouraged? Okay, cool.
Highly encouraged for you to play.
Perfect.
All right, let's see. Fingers crossed that I can log in. If not, we'll play charades or something. But let's see. Not this one. Apologies, just taking a moment. And there we go, handling keys and secrets. Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen here. Oop, you shouldn't see this question, but hopefully you didn't see that for too long. And you should be seeing, let me take this caption off the screen. You'll see the code to join our game up on the screen in just a moment after I click classic mode here. So let me actually join the game myself. I don't know how I will do with this game. So I'm going to log into kahoot.it on my phone, and we will select classic mode. And here comes that game pin. Get ready.
All right, let's see.
293-5545.
You know what? I'm going to take this for our streams as well. Also, Grammarly for Developers has a YouTube channel as well. Subscribe to it.
Nice.
Let's see.
If you have a link to that, Charles, you can throw it into our super secret private chat, and I can post it in the public chat.
Oh my goodness, yes. Let me do that right now. There we go.
Nice. Let me just copy that. We still have the code up for folks to join. Looks like you have a couple seconds left.
Okay, I'm in.
Nice. We got Space Bobcat and Gladfinch. Sometimes we do see folks jumping in mysteriously in the middle of the game, so we'll see how that goes. All right, here's the first question. Handling keys and secrets. What's the purpose of git ignore files? To ignore all of your git commands, to ensure that certain files that are not tracked by git remain untracked, to load environment variables from .env files, or holds details about a project such as a name, version, and dependencies. What do you think? Evenly distributed. All right, Gladfinch.
True or false?
Secret scanning is the practice of automatically scanning text and files for secrets, such as passwords or API keys. True or false? Ooh, true, and that is correct.
Yes.
Some of these questions are tough. Let me get this thing out of the way. There we go. There's your game pin.
Ooh, Postman secret scanner.
Ooh, will store all of your live journal and Tumblr entries to train AI models. Will expose your workspace keys and secrets. Detects secrets across workspaces and alerts you when they're exposed. Stores incriminating information on all users.
You just reminded me that LiveJournal and Tumblr still exists. Oh my gosh. I need to do some deleting. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
I feel like I do that every day on Facebook.
Like, oh my goodness.
Nice. It does detect your secrets across workspaces. All right, Gladfinch on fire with a streak. Student leaders must have student expert certification. Is that true or false? That's one we didn't talk about, but if you went on our student programs webpage, you would see that information.
You should absolutely go to that webpage.
Yep, that QR code is up on the left corner.
When did student programs come out? I wish I had it when I was learning the code.
It's a couple years old, but yeah, it's definitely helpful for folks who are just getting started. Gladfinch still with that streak.
Who is Charles Watkins? That is a question.
Local hero who rescued a cat from a tree. A live stream support engineer, a developer support engineer, or the inventor of the grammar mobile.
At least 3 of these things are true. I won't say which 3 though.
Nice. A developer support engineer. Okay, Gladfinch with your flower crown here.
It's amazing. It's like kind of Roman. I like it. It's cool.
Nice. Cool. So let me stop sharing here. Oop, don't get started with a new game. I don't know if you heard the music for the game in the background or not, or if it was just in my headphones.
I like turned it off. I was afraid it would be super loud or an ad would play. I don't know.
Oh, nice. But yeah, that concludes our episode. It was so much fun having you, Charles. Thank you so much for joining us. Did you have any closing thoughts or anything you wanted to share?
Yes. If you are building something that involves users, I don't know, adding content, check out Grammarly for Developers to give them writing assistance. It's super easy to use. Also, follow us on YouTube. The YouTube link's there. Follow us on Twitter. It's Grammarly Devs. And follow me on Twitter, CharlesW_Dev. That's it.
Definitely follow all those accounts. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. But yeah, thanks so much for having us, Charles. And thank you for sharing all of that information with folks who are watching. I know I'm definitely going to be a little bit more careful with my keys and secrets, and I want to check out Doppler after that demo.
Doppler's cool. Cool.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, and we will see you, it's March, on the last Tuesday of April. I'm not sure what date that is just yet, but it will be the last Tuesday. All right, folks, we'll see you then. See ya.